All right. Welcome back, everybody. I'm back. I was just here a few minutes ago. But good afternoon, good morning again, depending on where you are in the United States. If you're somewhere else, great to have you here. Good day to you, I guess is maybe the safer way to say that. Um, I'm back here again to talk about the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. It's coming up, starts tomorrow evening in Austin, Texas. It runs November 1st through 3rd in Austin. And today I wanted to give you, this is actually your last chance to meet some of our partners that are helping to make this event a reality. After this conversation, it's time to pack equipment up and get ready to go. So if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, or if you haven't heard about it before, I'm talking about the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. It is the business conference for entrepreneur architects. In fact, it is the first ever live conference that's dedicated just to you, to small firm entrepreneur architects. Now, I started this live stream series related to the conference all the way back in August to first introduce you to our speakers and then preview their talks. And now, as I said, I'm going back through with bringing our partners into the mix. And these conversations have been a lot of fun. If you've missed them, I think the easiest way to find them is to go over to the EntreArchitect YouTube channel and find the playlist for the EntreArchitect Annual Meeting. All of these interviews, all of these conversations are there in that playlist. So you can go back, as this one will be once we wrap up this conversation, but you can meet virtually speaking all of our speakers and all of our partners in this event there in that playlist. So again, good morning or good afternoon. My name is Jeff Eccles. If we've never met, I'm the Vice President of Community Engagement at EntreArchitect, the largest worldwide community of entrepreneur architects. And I'm also the host of Context and Clarity Live. Today, I'm joined by Steve Yates. He's an executive vice president of enterprise and industry partners at Buildxact. He's based in Santa Barbara, California. So, Steve, first, thank you for partnering. Thank you and your entire team at Buildxact for partnering with EntreArchitect on the upcoming conference. And thank you for joining me today on this call.
You're welcome, Jeff, and thank you for inviting me to spend this time with you and for the opportunity, in fact, to sponsor your conference. You know, as I was listening to your introduction, today we're going to talk a lot about collaboration.
Yeah.
And these conferences that you're starting in Austin are really, really important opportunities for us to get together and to share thoughts and concerns and ideas with our peers. Because, of course, none of us live in isolation. None of us work in isolation, right? We all are dependent on others for our successes. And it's really, these types of conferences and the forums that you and I are about to engage in are really great opportunities to share thoughts and concerns and to help develop whatever your enterprise might be.
Yeah. Those are excellent points. They really are. I mean, none of us got to where we are. None of us work in isolation. So that's an excellent point. I see we're joined by Bob Habian. Hi, Bob. He and Evan Troxel will be headed over to Austin, or maybe are already on their way. I don't know. Speaking of collaboration, they're representing tech and their podcast or live stream show, Peopleverse. So it'll be great to have Bob and Evan over there. So we'll make it a big sponsor celebration right now. Glad to have all of you with us. So Steve, I just touched on, Buildxact and you and your title and everything else. So why don't we build this relationship with the audience and the community by starting with who you are and what you do and why you do it?
Yeah. So let's start with Buildxact. First of all, Buildxact is at its core a ERP system or a construction management solution for people who are involved in the residential construction industry. Of course, primarily focused on builders. Buildxact began in 2011 in Melbourne, Australia. And the founders of Buildxact at the time understood in the Master Builders Association at the time, and understood that custom home builders and remodelers really needed help in how to be successful with their projects, how to manage their projects to successful outcomes. And it was a very, very single-minded focus on those builders originally that led to the BuildXact in Australia and the launch of BuildXact in the North American market about 2 years ago. So we've just been talking about builders. Why are we in this conversation with your architects? Well, I'm assuming a lot of your architects have similar challenges to certainly from an enterprise level that our builders had. And if some of you are small architects, I'm going to assume that you're on your way to being a big architect. That there are aspirations here to expand opportunities for yourself in the market. And the one thing that we realize in working with SMB, working with small businesses across all categories, is nobody works in isolation. We calculate that a builder has something like 55 external touch points to have to deal with and accommodate to go from start of project to completion. And of course, the architect-builder relationship is a critical part of that.
Right.
And so our builders, after a time, once they became familiar with our product and began using our product to improve the way that they created project inputs and built their projects for success, realized that they don't work in isolation. They needed support. They needed a tool that would allow them to collaborate with their architect and with their building materials suppliers. And so BuildXact evolved over time to be exactly that. And now we have a population of almost everybody who participates in whatever level in the production of residential construction in a platform that takes away some of the friction of working together and allows everybody to be more effective.
Yeah. I love tools like these, and as you were talking about the builders and the home builders and needing the tools, it really struck me that a big commonality between builders like you're talking about and architects like you're talking about is that those builders, whether they're a framer or whatever their trade or discipline is, when they went out on their own, one of the reasons was probably that they were pretty good at what they did. And they had the skill set, they had the ability to do it on their own. Same on the architecture side. There's a lot of architects that have gone out on their own. They're fantastic at what they do, but I think the common missing link is it's more than just being able to frame, or more than just being able to design this. There's this whole other thing called the business of builder or architect or something like that. And I love it when tools like BuildXact come into the picture, because you're helping to close that gap for your customers or your clients in some of those things that, let's face it, most of us that are in these positions, we're not trained on the business of architecture side or the business of being a builder side.
Exactly that. Quite often, you'll start with a vocational commitment. I'm a designer. I have this intention around what I'm going to be able to create in the built environment. And then you discover, well, my goodness, there's so much more to this. I actually owned an AEC firm for 15 years in California. And I have many people who worked with me over those 15 years who now have their own practices. And so often they would come back and say, oh my God, Steve, now I know what you were talking about, right? This is really, there's stuff here, real commercial knowledge that I didn't have, that I needed. And there were tools that I needed that I didn't understand. I needed a time when my intention was just to go out and build. And so the need for support and the need for people to pay attention to this support is really important, because the impact your audience has on the built environment is great and will continue to be great. when we look at it from a builder perspective, for example, less than 15% of all builders in North America do more than 10 closes a year. Mm-hmm. And the architectural industry is very, very similar. There's a lot of wonderful production in the built environment that's done by small firms, and generally they need support, and it's great to be able to bring support to them.
Yeah, that's an important point. I mean, when we think about the impact, actually, as you were saying that, it reminded me that this week on this daily show that we do that we call Context and Clarity Conversations, we're going to be talking about the power of place and the impact of the built environment. And sometimes that means this home that you're designing and building on the family that's going to live there. But even beyond that, right? The health of that family, the neighborhood that it's going into. There's so many facets, so much impact that comes from the work that the builders and the architects and others are doing. I love the fact that we're focused on um, uh, assisting to have a greater and healthier impact, I guess, on the built environment.
Yes, and there's some wonderful opportunities for change in the industry. The opportunity to really look at the built environment from an ecological point of view, from a sustainability point of view. And I would venture to say that each of your audience members would have had the experience of designing a solution that's sustainable and environmentally forward thinking, to take it to a general contractor only to have them say, oh, I can't change my means and methods. I can't do that. I have enough difficulty with my labor force getting them to construct the conventional way, let alone adopt new means and methods.
Yeah.
And I could take that kind of experience and then lay that over a builder talking to a manufacturer who's wanting to bring a sustainable product to the market, or a manufacturer's distributor who's wanting to do the same. And part of the issue that our industry has, I think, with a high degree of confidence, is we've tended to have low trust relationships. Mm-hmm. That we have functioned in silos. There's a colleague and friend of mine of the name Ken Pinto, who wrote a book titled "Where's the Milk?" And he drew an analogy of going to a grocery store, filling up your cart, coming to the checkout, and you get a receipt with just one bottom item, $187. And you say, well, it's not line itemed here. I can just see the $187. Can you tell me how much the milk is in my cart? And the cashier says, well, we don't do that. We've done a lot of research, and we can tell you that you've been working $187 is a good price. You would never do it, right?
Right.
But in this industry, we do it all of the time. Architects will go and ask for 3 competitive bids on their design, and you'll never know how much the milk costs, right? You'll get $187. And this is problematic, right? It's problematic in all of the vertical, from the builder to his supplier, to the trade subconsultants, from the architect to the builder. And it's not necessary for us to continue to be that way. We can actually find out how much the milk is, and Buildxact is really focused on this problem a lot. And I'll take a workflow in an architect's office where, as you go from schematic design through design development, through your construction documentation and your construction administration, your design is evolving. And as it evolves, as your thinking evolves, as you continue to improve, how can you keep track of what the cost implications are of the changes that your project is going through that phase?
That's a great question.
For example, and of course, what often happens is you go to a certain level with design, and you have to back over when you have to value engineer the design to get back to a budget. And part of this is because Where's my partner in this? Where's the person that's actually building this project that's staying right with me while I'm designing to let me know what the cost implications are of this decision we're making in design development? But with technology today, we don't have to have these standoff relationships. We can actually have within a unified user experience a shared view of the progression and what the cost implications are. And so goodness knows that from a builder's perspective, they would love nothing more, right, than to actually have a collaborative relationship rather than just being given a fait accompli at the end of a project, say bid this.
Right. Right.
It's just a transition we see happening in the market that's really quite exciting.
So how does EntreArchitect perpetuate that? Like you said, we're not operating in vacuums. We need to be more collaborative in this. So EntreArchitect is a tool that we now have at our disposal. How does it work for architects and builders to use this together?
So when we think about, if you visualize the vertical and think you've got the design inputs from your architect, you've got your regulatory and municipal inputs at the front of the project, and really your builder, he then needs to look at how to fulfill that design. And he's got trade subconsultants, he's got suppliers, and as I mentioned before, manufacturers. Well, what EntreArchitect did, firstly, is provide the management tools for the builder to be able to handle those relationships. But then we've gone ahead and created the platform that enables that builder to have real-time building materials, build assemblies, pricing, inventory management inside of the management of their project 24/7. So a builder can be connected to their primary supplier and be getting and get any kind of change or modification and have the costing update in real time.
That's powerful.
So that's the beginning point. All right. And to give you an idea of how powerful it is, we've done a lot of research on this, and our builders, on average, after they've projected a project cost, put in their overhead and margin, they would add 20% to that bid and a prayer because of the poor fidelity they had on project costs at the time they were being asked to win work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With EntreArchitect, they're able they don't need to put in that 20%. They have real-time access to real-time pricing that they can use to actually bid on jobs and win jobs. From a client architect perspective, you're now getting responses that don't have this 20% of fat is in there, and it's going to be consumed by poor management anyway.
Right. Right.
So builders that are using EntreArchitect are winning 23% of every job they quote. It's always 1 in 4. It's extraordinary. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of the efficiency. If we go to the other end, we look at the builder-architect relationship. A lot of architects are using BIM systems to be able to have live intelligent design data as they go. One of the struggles with BIM, though, is as you're in schematic or if you're massing in schematic or design development, it's hard to keep the fidelity, the information modeling accurate.
Right.
For that model to not dumb down as you continue to make a lot of changes. And so it's when you need to move fast and think in free form, BIM is asking you to be very literal and very specific and very heavy front end. So EntreArchitect solves that in a way by being able to do quantity surveying and building means and methods in a much faster, more efficient way in the design process, particularly if you're collaborating with the builder in the process as you go.
Right. So is it plugging into the BIM or no? It's completely separate.
It's separate from the BIM. Yes, you could flatten. What you would do is flatten out a BIM model into a PDF file and import it in and do your quantity survey based on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is really important because it's, especially where we are right now. This is it's Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Mhm.
October 31st, 2022. And I know that there are a lot of architects out there that are concerned with the status of their projects.
Yes.
Different people saying different things about what's coming in terms of the economy. Um, and I think ultimately, a big part of that concern is obviously not knowing what's coming economically, but not actually knowing what's happening with the cost of the project. And I think that fear of the unknown seems like it's piling on and piling on at this point.
Well, and there's that practical consideration, which is a commercial consideration. There's also the frustration of being a design professional and having real intention about the built environment, and to have all of that value engineered out of your process in bid and negotiation or
Good
construction
point. Yep.
administration,
Yep.
right? There's nothing more heart wrenching than have that process happen. And so the ability to be able to track where you are and to actually enter into a real collaborative relationship with builders, I think, is there. And then some would say, well, I need to do 3 bids because I want to make sure my pricing is most effective. And I said, well, I understand that, but what you give up is the collaborative piece. What you
Right.
give up is the ability. And if you're using technology like Buildxact that gives you full open book visibility all the way through to the supply chain, then you have to be less concerned about that standoff, low trust relationship to preserve your price integrity.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's Bob's got a good question here. He's asking if you have any thoughts on how architects and builders might connect generally outside of one project in order to get to know each other and begin to build trust and dialogue, which obviously is, we've got the tool, but then there's the human aspect of it. He says it's typically rather hard to achieve this if we only get to engage with active projects. Within active projects, I think is where he's going with that.
I think that's a really good question, and it's a good frame. We don't within our platform you create a community per se, but where, for example, a supplier organization and a builder are relating, they are having a dialogue at an enterprise level.
Hmm.
So they can understand each other's business at an enterprise level and then see projects within that. And so what happens from that collaboration is this greater visibility, right? And with greater visibility, there's an opportunity to actually be to be value add in the way that you have that relationship. You take a manufacturer, for example. Oh wow, I can see, Jeff, that you've got your 7 projects this year and that you're really busy, and I can see the nature of what you've coming in here is how we can help. Right? Well, let's
Yep.
have a conversation about how we can help. So I think having or even participating in this conversation around enterprise level, or make it even simpler, right? Um, if we have an intention to help each other, if we understand how interdependent we are in the vertical and have that intention, let's not be your low trust, somewhat adversarial in our relationship, but let's have an intention to recognize we are dependent on each other, and let's sit down and solve problems together at an enterprise level. That time could be incredibly well spent.
Yeah, yeah, and I know, knowing a little bit about Bob's background and his product, and he's talking. I misspoke earlier. I see Evan is going to be representing Tech in Austin starting tomorrow, and Bob won't be there. So sorry, Bob, we'll miss you. But Tech, I think, is a good upcoming tool for. Um, for helping with that collaboration as well. It's very different than Buildxact, but I think that's promising is that there are so many tools out there that are focusing on building whether it's building the communities or a network or for whatever form it takes. Um, Facilitating the collaboration, I think, is the important point.
I think there's another really important matter here. We've been talking about a relationship between a builder entity and an architect entity, but
Mhm.
there's another consideration here is when we use the phrase design build,
Mhm.
we generally think, oh, there's a general contractor that's also designing.
Right.
Right? But there's also a wonderful trend going on where actually architects are building.
Right.
And so design build for me doesn't have that one dimension to it any
Yeah.
longer. There are a lot of architects out there actually addressing some of the friction that we've been talking about in the vertical and say, well, okay, I'm going to do this myself. Right?
Right.
And so where we have architectural firms that are actually completing and fulfilling projects and building at the same time, you have the same condition where BuildXact can really be taking away the noise that occurs between the design studio and the actual build team in the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point. And you were talking a couple of minutes ago about the value add to the project, and I think in a way that starts to address what Christian is talking about here. He says it's hard to be considered a trusted advisor, and it seems to me that the more value you can add to this, I think the more knowledge. If we take the the view of construction cost and process, managing the construction as BuildXact does, it seems to me the more confidence, information, accuracy um, that comes out of using tools like BuildXact, the more that gets reflected in trust from the client side. Is that true, or am I sort of in dreamland there?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think, of course, this is pithy, but it's true. Trust is earned, right?
Yeah.
Not granted, right?
Right.
It takes work. And
Mhm.
in fact, early on in the evolution of BuildXact, and what BuildXact does is share information so an asset owner can, through their client portal, see all project activity. And some builders in the beginning, when we were testing this out, were like, well, maybe we don't want to share that information with our owners. So we said, well, probably BuildXact's not a platform for you in that case, because we believe it's necessary, right, to ultimately get to where you intentionally want to get to with your business, to actually be that open with your
Yep.
process. It's in that openness that you solve. Uh, it's interesting. Many of your team would also, you have been on a job site with the client and the general, walking through a framed master bathroom, and to have one of the clients say, oh wow, I didn't realize it was going to look like this on plan, can we move the vanity 9 inches to the left?
Yeah.
And then the general has 5 trades on site, everybody going really busy. Time is their enemy. They're like, we can do that. But then, of course, what's not talked about is, then we have to move the window. We have to actually recalculate the hard flooring calculation. We have to move the electrical. We have to move the plumbing. So this is, on the 18th of the month, and the end of the month comes by, and the general sits down and calculates up all of the information and puts it into their monthly report to the asset owner. Goes out and says, well, hold on a minute, Jeff. If you told me when it was going to cost that much, we would have. It's only 9 inches. We wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Yeah. And you repeat that time and time and time and time again. Not to mention the architect has to update drawings. There's all sorts of cost implications that nobody's really aware of in the fog of war when you're on that job site.
Right.
So to actually have the openness to be able to see on your iPad, oh my goodness, there's the implications right there.
Hmm.
It becomes a different kind of relationship, right? And it's very trust reinforcing to be
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in fact, one of the things that people quite often say is, well, the technology is in lieu of relationship, right? It's actually not. It's actually a relationship enhancing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's
Yeah.
taking it's giving you the ability to make better decisions based on better quality information.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think that when we're talking, when we're talking about trusted advisor or any version of that, and you were exactly right when you said trust is earned. Um, a lot of that, if not all of that, comes from experience, right? From client experience. What's it like to go through this project with you? And hey, I want to move this 9 inches. What does that mean? And that's it's a funny, not funny example because an
There's no
awful lot of us have experienced that.
right? There's no bad intention, but the process
Right.
isn't trust building, right? Because
Yep.
it's just an emotional reaction, and given the tools available at the time, you're inevitably going to end up in that place. What a lot of contractors do in that situation is they don't do the change order. So
Mhm.
you build that up over 10 months of a project, and you get to the end, and there's 20 change orders that they just have eaten
Yeah.
because they don't want to deal with that ultimate conflict. I mean,
Right.
we're talking about just human nature now. It's remarkable that you'd think that this even happens, but it does, right? And
Yep.
that's where that 20% goes. So
Right. Right.
if you can take a different stance, if you can bring your builder into the design conversation earlier, not that they're influencing it anyway, but that they can be a partner in the formation, it's more probable than not that you're ultimately going to get that design realized more often um,
Yeah.
in the built environment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. So we've talked about relationships and the fact that we're not in isolation, the power of collaboration and the power of these tools, it's specifically Build Exact and all of that, leading to better information and the status, I suppose, of trusted advisor. So when we bring this together in the big picture, what's a piece of advice that you have for entrepreneur architects as they're looking at building better businesses and figuring out how to practice better and practice in their own way? Is one thing that we talk about a lot here. What's a piece of advice that you have that and it could be related to Build Exact. It could be 30,000 feet higher than Build Exact. But what do you think in terms of advice for entrepreneur architects?
Um, I'm going to go back to the top when we talked about none of us work in isolation.
Yeah.
Right? And you can see I'm a young fella. So one thing my experience has taught me is that quite often it's hard to know whether you're the smartest guy in the room or the dumbest guy in the room.
It's a good point.
And we every day we get up and we strive at our enterprises, and we feel there's a bit of isolation that comes with that. Right? But it doesn't have to be that way. Your EntreArchitect, what you're doing with this conference, it's okay to actually get with your peers and to have a conversation and say, these are my fears, these are my concerns. It's
Yeah.
okay to talk to your builders and say, hey, this job's coming up. I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to actually build it in the budget. Let's talk about it, because in that kind of approach, I mean, as soon as you reach out to help somebody, then that becomes reciprocal.
Right.
And if we could take that approach I think we could well learn from, understanding we don't have to do it alone, and that we can look for ways to see to bring other people's interests in line with ours. We're going to be more effective.
Yeah. That is a fantastic piece of advice. That's so true.
Mhm.
Um, there you have it. I don't even know how to make that any better. So Steve Yates is executive vice president at Build Exact and partner with the EntreArchitect Community on the annual meeting, which starts tomorrow. Opening reception is tomorrow evening. It's running November 1st through 3rd in Austin, Texas. Again, if you are an architect that wants to learn to build a business that allows you to practice the way that you want to practice, or maybe you're the employee of a firm that wants to bring some of these lessons to your firm, or you want to go out on your own and start your own practice to do it your own way. Go over to smallfirmconference.com EntreArchitectCommunityAnnualMeeting.com. There you will find all the speakers, all the sponsors, all of our partners, the venue. You can even register. I think there are still a few slots left, not many. It is designed as a small, intimate conference. We started with 150 slots total, so I know there are just a few of those left. But check it out if you have an inkling about going. Smallfirmconference.com. Maybe you can find a ticket and join us tomorrow in Austin, Texas. And if you want to know more about Steve's company, BuildXact, go to buildexact.com. You can see it in the lower left corner of your screen right now, BUILDXact.com. And you'll find all kinds of information there. And as you noticed, probably as we were talking, Steve has his email address on the screen. If you want to contact him directly, you can do that as well. But buildexact.com is the homepage for the company there. So with that, Steve, I really appreciate you joining us. And your support and partnership with us on this conference. It's going to be a great one. Wish you were going to be there, but I know that Jennifer Castenson, one of your colleagues, she will be there, which will be a fantastic. I'm not trying to discount Jennifer in any way. I realized that as it was coming out. That didn't sound great. It'll be great to have Jennifer there. Wish you could be there with us, Steve.
She's much more fun than I am. So when you see her, reach out to her. She's just a tremendous body of knowledge in the industry. And so good luck with the conference. And we're really pleased to do our small part.
Jennifer really is. We really appreciate you and the whole team for this. Again, without you, we wouldn't be having this conversation, obviously, but we wouldn't be able to pull this event off. So thank you to you, Steve, and Bob. Thank you, and thanks for sending Evan to join us tomorrow as well. And to everybody that's out there, safe travels as we head to Austin, Texas. Appreciate all of you. We're really looking forward to getting the community together. It's been a long time since we've been able to do a lot of in-person things, so this is going to be a great time. To everybody out there, again, thank you for this. Please be well, stay safe, keep those around you safe and well. Find a little bit of time to breathe and relax. Find a way to rejuvenate. We have these conversations at least once a day. We'll be having context and clarity conversation today at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is just a couple of hours away. So you've got to pace yourself. Thanks for going along this journey. And we'll see everyone again very soon. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you out there. Thank you, everybody.